I'm sorry, I think you have the wrong table, she said softly, looking up from her cup of tea. It was supposed to be an ordinary afternoon in a quiet cafe in downtown Toronto, the kind of place where the hum of conversations mixed with the smell of freshly ground coffee beans. But the man standing before her, nervous, holding a small bouquet of daisies, hesitated. For a moment, time seemed to pause. Oh, must've, he stammered, glancing around the cafe, realizing his mistake. He looked embarrassed, the kind of awkward you could feel across the room. She gave him a small, polite smile. He turned to leave, but something about the way she looked, alone, with a notebook open and a faraway sadness in her eyes, made him stop. Actually, he said, turning back, you mind if I sit here anyway? All the other tables are full. It was a lie, half the cafe was empty. She could have said no, but instead, she nodded. Maybe it was the loneliness of that particular day, or maybe something deeper, the quiet nudge of fate that both of them couldn't see yet. They sat in silence for a while. He introduced himself as Daniel, an architect who had just moved to the city. She was Claire, a children's book illustrator who'd lost her inspiration after her mother passed away 6 months ago. Her eyes flickered with pain as she mentioned her mother, and he noticed. He didn't ask more, but his tone softened. There was something calming about his presence, gentle, patient. The conversation began to flow, slowly at first, like water thawing from ice. They talked about art, about how cities breathe through the people who build and paint them. She laughed once, shyly, the kind of laugh that sounded like she hadn't used it in a long time. When their drinks were empty, Daniel asked if she wanted another. She agreed. Hours slipped away unnoticed. When the cafe began to close, they stepped out into the chilly Toronto evening. The city lights shimmered across the wet pavement. Thanks for letting me sit, he said, smiling. Maybe I didn't have the wrong table after all. She smiled back, for the first time without the weight she carried all day. Maybe you didn't. They exchanged numbers, and over the next few weeks, their friendship blossomed. Daniel often brought her small gifts, a sketchbook, pencils, even a cup of her favorite jasmine tea. He never asked too many questions about her sadness, he simply stayed. That was enough. One evening, Claire invited him to her small apartment. The walls were filled with unfinished drawings, colorless dreams waiting for life again. He walked around, admiring them quietly. You're really talented, he said. Why'd you stop? She looked down. My mom was the reason I drew. Every page I make reminds me she's gone. Her voice cracked. Daniel stepped closer. Maybe that's exactly why you should keep going. So a part of her stays alive in what you create. That night, after he left, she sat for hours, staring at her blank page. And then she picked up her pencil. For the first time since her mother's death, she began to draw again, children laughing in the snow, a little girl holding her mother's hand. Tears blurred her eyes, but she kept drawing. Months passed, and Claire's work started to gain attention. A small publishing company offered her a chance to release her own illustrated book, something about finding light after loss. The first person she called was Daniel. He showed up with flowers, just like that first day. At the book launch, she stood before a crowd, hands trembling, voice soft but full of gratitude. This story isn't just mine, she said. It's for anyone who's ever lost someone and thought they'd never feel whole again. Her eyes found Daniel's in the crowd. Sometimes, fate sits at your table even when it wasn't supposed to. After the event, as the crowd thinned, Daniel approached her. You remember what you said to me that day? He asked. She smiled. I'm sorry, I think you have the wrong table. He laughed. Yeah, turns out, fate had the right one. The snow began to fall outside the window, soft and steady. He reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. The world felt quiet, peaceful, like everything had finally come full circle. In that moment, both of them realized something simple yet profound, that life has a way of putting the right people in the wrong places, at exactly the right time. And sometimes, the tables we never planned to sit at become the ones that change our lives forever. And as the cafe lights dimmed behind them, Claire looked up at the falling snow and whispered, almost to herself, "Thank you, Mom, for sending him." Because sometimes, fate doesn't knock on your door, it just walks up to your table with a nervous smile and a bouquet of daisies.